if I could just give you kind of an idea of what autism is and how it affects families and why it is we do what we do. My little girl's 14 now, and when she was about 18 months, she wasn't responding the way you would imagine an ordinary child of that age would. And obviously, as young parents, you start to panic and you kind of think, well, what's wrong? What's not happening that should happen? The usual kind of scenario is that the parents bring the child for a hearing test because the child is not responding, so you kind of think, well, maybe there's something wrong with the hearing, and then after you bring it for the hearing test and you're told that the baby's hearing is fine, you kind of wonder, well, what's going wrong? To cut a long story short, because as Darren rightly said, I can't go on for hours, Mia had autism, but the problem we had in Ireland was getting a diagnosis. The word autism never entered my mind before. I didn't know what autism was, I didn't know what it was about, I didn't know where to go, what to do, and I asked a lot of questions, and all the answers I got was, well, first and foremost, you have to get a diagnosis done. Early detection is essential for the future of the child. Going forward, Mia went into the school eventually after about 12 months, and from a little girl, like I said, that was non-verbal, that had no contact with us really, no affection, not really tactile, and it was very upsetting that she couldn't communicate with us, she couldn't speak, so obviously that was very frustrating. We started to see this little girl blossom. We started to see her, engage with us a little bit more, and we started to see her smile a lot more. And then she started to watch TV. She started watching musicals. One of her favourite musicals was Annie, and she'd watch it over and over again. And she never slept for 7 years. If she had 20 minutes nap in the afternoon, she'd be awake all night. So you wouldn't really sleep yourself. You'd be dozing in the bed waiting for Barney to finish so you could put on the next Barney video to keep her happy for another half an hour. It sounds like really bad parenting, but after 6 months of that, what are you supposed to do? Stay awake all night, So you do your best, and you try to educate yourself on what needs to be done. So Mia responded very, very well to the intervention that was put in place, and she started to grow and develop into this beautiful little girl. She was still very much isolated in her own world, and she still, like I say, was non-verbal. I think looking back now, when she was 7, it was a Sunday afternoon in the house, and myself and my wife were sitting watching TV, and Mia, as usual, was in her bedroom watching Annie. And I know my mother and father-in-law were in the room watching TV with us, and I remember being quite hungover, not that you need to know that part, but I was a bit hungover that day. And she ran into the room like she usually would. She ran into the press and she got whatever goodies she wanted, and she was running out again, and then she kind of ran back in, and we kind of stopped to look to see what she was doing. Now, you have to remember, we'd never heard her voice, we'd never heard her speak or talk to us or say hi or mom or dad or any of those things that you kind of love when you have a new child in the house and they start kind of responding like that. But she sang Tomorrow from Annie, having never spoken before, having never even verbalised before. So that's why it's important. Even now, my daughter Mia, who I spoke about before, we started to integrate her when she'd done well after 5 years in the special school. We started integrating her into mainstream school. Half an hour a day, just hanging around with peer equal kids, and in maybe art for half an hour, then maybe go into English for half an hour, and eventually build it up to a day in an ordinary national school. And then we built it up to 2 days and then 3 days. Eventually she went to a national school where we live, so she didn't have to have the travelling every morning and every evening. And now she's in second level school. She's in third year now. She's doing her junior cert this year, and academically she's flying. She'll always be autistic. She'll always have that tag, but she's amazing now. The way she communicates, she's very tactile. She's very affectionate. She's got a lot of love. She's in our world. We've had a mini miracle with her, because the difference is, if we provide the appropriate education at the right time of a child's life, we're giving them the opportunity to reach their own true potential. Their own true potential can sometimes, in certain situations, mean that they can go on and survive in our society. They can maybe hold down a job one day. They can maybe fall in love and have some sort of a quality of life. If that provision is not put in place for certain children, they will be neglected, they'll be pushed aside, not by the parents, by the way, by the state. And then they'll be excluded from party time, they'll be excluded from playtime, they'll be excluded from schools. And not only that, if it goes further than that, they get into their adolescent years, well then, if they're not performing the way a typical child should, they don't survive in special needs scenarios, in a ratio of 6 or 8 kids to one teacher. They don't, because they have sensory issues that prevents them to do that. So a one-to-one teaching process is what really gets them going. And we can teach them, we can educate them on how to learn in a learning environment. And that's what we're trying to do. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is obviously I've seen my daughter progress. I've seen her growing into this beautiful young lady. And I've seen the children that haven't been as lucky as my daughter, and I've seen where they've ended up. And it's a disgrace. It really is a pure disgrace. It's going to take somebody in power to have a child or to be related to somebody that has autism for them to take the time to understand how much can be done for these children, but not to just leave them aside, to bring them in and to give them the provisions that they need and watch them progress and watch them flourish and watch them grow into a young human being, a young adult that has so much to offer to the rest of us. You know, they're just as important as you and I.